Hey, BookTube friends, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to be here today because I have a special guest. It's a little bit different. It's actually not someone from the BookTube community, but it's someone from a fitness community that I'm a part of. So Devin here, she's in the Positively Fit community with me, and we kind of connected over books. Like, we noticed that we were both readers in that chat, and I saw that she had purchased this book, Little Creeping Things by Chelsea Ikazo. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I kind of twisted her arm into reading this with me and popping on YouTube here. So welcome, Dev. If you don't mind, just you can tell folks a little bit about yourself and what you like to read.
Hi, my name's Devin. I am from a very small town in Kentucky. I love reading mystery books, occasionally ghost story books, and absolutely love comic books. So I have a very strange genre, I guess. Um, and I am an early Head Start educator, and that's
Nice.
pretty much all I do is work and read, and I dance. I belly dance every week. So.
Yeah, that is so cool. I wish I did something that cool, but none of my hobbies are quite that quite that fun. um, so yeah, this book kind of popped out to me. What drew you to this book?
I'll be honest, I saw the cover and I just immediately picked it up when I was in Books a Million. And I was like, I have a weird thing about dolls anyway. And I don't know if it's just because my sister kind of scared me into being afraid of dolls when we were growing up. But I was like, ooh, I bet this is like a scary story type book. And in its own way, I guess it is. But it was a little different than I expected. But it still sounded very suspenseful when I read it or read the back.
Yeah, for sure. When I saw this cover, I was like, okay, creepy porcelain doll. I'm totally in for that. Because I had a friend as a kid who had porcelain dolls in her bedroom, and I don't know why, but I was always creeped out by them. I don't know, those glassy eyed stares just kind of like creeped me out.
Just
So, yeah, I picked this book up not really knowing what it was about. I didn't know if there was going to be like a Chucky sort of thing going on with the doll, but that's
right.
that's not how it turned out. But yeah, I enjoyed it overall. What was your overall impression of the book?
I loved like how fast paced it was because I'm very much somebody that kind of if you don't hold me in the first chapter, I'm probably not going to read it. So I really enjoyed how fast everything started happening, and it just was never there was never any confusion in it. The characters, it was like just the right amount of people within it. There wasn't just some random side characters that you didn't really they didn't really have a purpose or anything. So I really loved that because I feel like when you overwhelm me with a lot of characters, I don't remember who they are.
Yeah, and I think sometimes with mysteries, and I just read a mystery with one of the book clubs I run, and yeah, with mysteries, a lot of them fall into that trap where it's just so many characters. You're introduced to so many people that you can't really keep straight, who's who, and that can get a little complicated. We do have some people tuning in. Hello, Mark. Oh no, not Chucky.
Exactly. Thank goodness.
Got some folks popping in here. Um, yeah, I thought this was a solid, young adult mystery, and I do feel like I give a little bit more leeway, I guess, to the young adult mysteries because I feel like they do have to be a little bit more easy to follow. And they do have to be fast paced because you have to grab the attention of the young adult reader. So, and I really enjoyed it. There was some level of predictability, I guess, but not too much. I mean, I was kind of shocked by the ending.
Me
Um,
too.
And just to preface this, guys, we will be talking spoilers. You know, we're obviously going to talk about how this book ends. So if you feel like you're going to read this book, you might want to dip out. But thanks for stopping in anyway. So our main character's name is Cass. I don't remember if it's Cassidy. Is that her?
I think it is.
Okay. How did you feel about her character?
I feel like she's very easy to like empathize with. You feel very sympathetic to her because you have either been bullied in high school or you know or had friends that were bullied in high school. So you kind of just feel very sorry for her and what she's going through in high school. And you just, I don't know, you just relate to her very well, I think. So I just thought she was very interesting, and she just kind of let you in on what she was feeling and what she was thinking, and with the different people around her.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, it was a little bit more complex, I feel like, her character than some young adult characters, because she is an unreliable narrator. I mean, from the beginning of the book, I think one of the very first scenes is her at volleyball practice. And she starts seeing smoke or smelling smoke. And, like, basically she kind of, like, faints or passes out, has this, like, moment at volleyball practice. And so we're really trying to figure out, like, okay, she's flashing back to this very traumatic fire that she survived as a child. And she's dealing with, as you said, you know, she's being bullied because a lot of people at her school are calling her Fire Girl, because she is accused of starting the fire in the playhouse that killed her neighbor friend, and that she survived. So, yeah, there's a lot going on there. And I liked that added mystery of we're trying to figure out not just the current mystery of this girl at their high school going missing and eventually we find out she's murdered, but we're also trying to figure out what happened in Cassidy's background, like what is going on with her. And were you ever suspicious of Cass? Like, did you think that she was involved in the murder of her, I guess it was kind of her high school nemesis, Melody, even though, or was it Melody or Melanie? I can't remember which one.
Melody.
Melody, yeah. Basically was her high school nemesis, even though she had already graduated, which I thought was just so lame. I'm like, get a life, girl. Like, why are you still bullying this, this high school student? But did you ever?
Right, you graduated. Don't move on. I did. I thought that maybe she could have had maybe a multiple personality that she wasn't aware of, and maybe she just honestly didn't know that she had done this, or maybe she had blacked out at some point and she's just not, that just wasn't her that did it.
Yeah, I was kind of suspicious of that too, especially because of that initial scene where she pretty much does black out. It kind of set us up to suspect her. And then there are a couple scenes where she talks about getting upset and she says, my hands started to itch and I felt like I really wanted to start a fire. And I was like, oh my gosh, this girl is crazy. Maybe she really is Fire Girl. Like maybe she really did, you know, start this fire and, you know, kill her childhood friend. So yeah, I was a bit suspicious of her. But then I kept thinking that's got to be, that can't be it. That's too obvious.
Exactly. It's just too easy.
So, what other characters were you suspicious of?
I'm going to be honest, even though I love him and he's like my favorite, I was suspicious of Gideon. Because, well, you know, whatever happens to Melody when she's taken, I mean, he wasn't there when she was taken, technically, because he walked out of the hideout. So I was like, I mean, maybe he did actually have something to do with it. And they already have that close relationship together. So who's to say he wouldn't take care of that person for her?
Yeah, that's true. So essentially what happened was Gideon and Cass were in this little hideout that they created. They called the Hobbit Hole. And it was modeled after, the Hobbit house in Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, which I thought was super cool because another little literary reference. And I want one too. Yeah, super cool. But I think that's every kid's dream, right, to have one. But they're hanging out there, and that's when this murder occurs. And Cass kind of hears a little bit of what's going on. She hears Melody, she hears a male voice, and then Gideon goes to use his phone, I think, to send a text message or something. And so he's not there with her when the murder occurs. So, yeah, after you said that, I was like, oh, yeah, now I'm kind of suspicious of Gideon because he seems like such a nice guy, which, it was kind of odd. Cass is supposed to be this kind of outsider. She's being bullied. She's being called Fire Girl. And Gideon is like this super handsome, sought after guy in high school, yet he is best friends with Cass. So it was an odd pairing, I guess. I guess I'm a little too cynical because I was just kind of suspect of his motives, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, well, if she's this outsider, how does this work? And what's actually going on here? So, yeah, I was a little suspect of him. But I was actually drawn into the big red herring at the end, which was Peter. So,
I know.
Yeah, and that really, I felt so bad afterwards because Peter turns out to be a genuinely nice guy.
He didn't do anything. He was just there.
Didn't do anything wrong. And at the end, Cass is becoming really suspicious, and he like brings her breakfast, and so like she's like running away from him, and they set up Peter to be this big red herring at the end, but and I guess the notebook really is the big clue in the whole thing. And of course, the notebook was in his car. And what did you think about that whole deal with this notebook?
Well, I know she had been drinking, but I was just like, no, like that's such a horrible idea to write out like what you would do to this person that's bullying you. But I knew if she found the notebook, unless obviously it was planted, which is what ended up happening. Whoever has the notebook is obviously going to be who it is. But then, as you said, Peter really threw me off, and I was just like, it's got to be Peter. Like, and he started kind of being weird. Like, whenever she wanted to go check on Gideon, he wasn't really all for checking on Gideon. And I was like, it's just got to be him. But then, like, you think about it, and you're just like, who else would have that opportunity to have the notebook?
Right.
So it's really a lot to think about. Like, who else could have picked it up, other than who she originally showed the notebook to.
Right, which was her brother's friend Brandon. And I felt like that was too obvious, right? Because he was in on the notebook with her. Basically, Brandon and Cass were just they had been to a party, they'd had some drinks, and they were writing in this notebook back and forth about what they would do to Melody, like how they would get back at her for being this bully. And essentially it was kind of a play-by-play of what does happen to Melody. Right. So, this notebook was obviously involved, and the killer does start sending threatening text messages to Cass and to some other people as well. So, but I felt like Brandon, he's too obvious, right in the beginning. It can't be the first guy you suspect, for sure. Hello, Anne. Good to see you in here. And then Chris Joyner said, had to show how awesome she was. That's actually my husband. And that's a saying we use, like when people do something really like stupid, like Melody, she just had to show people how awesome she was by being this bully, to some high school student. which is so lame. But, you know, one thing about the bullying that I didn't quite find believable is that Cass was, you know, she was on the volleyball team, and, you know, some people on the volleyball team convinced her to go out for captain. And
Mm-hmm.
even her tormentors like seemed to like talk to her at certain points. So it was kind of weird. It was like she was on the outside, but not really. Like she was in certain respects ostracized, but sometimes not really. So it was really an odd dynamic there.
Yeah, and even what was the other bully, Stephanie? Stephanie kind of would go out of her way and talk to her, and she and Melody were like best friends. So I just kind of didn't quite understand that in that respect. But yeah,
Yeah,
she was a mix of being an outsider, but then she wasn't. So
yeah, I
weird
guess I'm
combo.
just used to the traditional like, you know, outsider, you know, being bullied and being completely, you know, on the fringe of not really fitting in anywhere, and not really
Yeah.
being involved in anything at school. So that was kind of interesting to me, and maybe part of that was what Cass did to Seth. Now, what did you think about Seth's character, the stalker Seth?
Seth, I think, would have been that kid if I were in high school that I would have avoided just because he gave off a very creepy vibe. But I feel bad because he was kind of done dirty too, you know. Um, and he was just being like he wasn't creepy, so it's I kind of have mixed feelings with Seth. He wasn't creepy to begin with. He just kind of started that one day. Like, well, if people think I'm creepy, I guess I'm gonna be creepy, you know?
Yeah.
So I kind of felt bad for him because Cassie was the one that spread that rumor about him, and now he literally is creepy. So,
Yeah,
but
he was for me one of the most sympathetic characters
mhm.
because, you know, he didn't deserve what Cassidy did to him. I mean, basically he and Cassidy were friends, and she would talk to him in the library, and I think I actually sent to you a page where it talked about the fact that he spent so much time in the library and how creepy that was, and I was like, really? I feel
Right,
personally attacked like
right,
right
that's
now.
creepy.
But yeah, he would just like read these really interesting books, and he seemed like, you know, a bit of a loner, but he was kind of intelligent, and he really liked Cassidy, and they started to, you know, talk a little bit. And then when the bullies started making fun of Cassidy over this, that's when she turned the tables and said, "Oh no, I don't like him. He's a stalker. He's been stalking me." And so that's when that whole you know, rumor about him being a stalker started. And you're right, he didn't really start off creepy. He kind of played to the belief that people then had, the perception that they had about him. And yeah, it was just really unfortunate. I just felt bad for him.
But man, when she snuck in that room and he saw her, I was like, oh Lord, because he was like threatening, but he wasn't. Like he blocks her kind of from getting out of the room. So I was like, oh, something's about to go down, but I don't know what. But he didn't. He was just kind of like, oh well, I hope you found what you were looking for.
Yeah, that was an intense scene. That was probably one of the scenes where I was like on pins and needles, because any time in a book or movie where somebody is snooping, you know, and they're trying to find something, you know they're gonna get caught. You know they're gonna be caught red-handed.
And
So
you're trying to help
yeah,
them get out.
yeah, it's like, come on, hurry up. But yeah, she definitely um was an interesting character because, you know, I felt sorry for her in certain respects, and then in certain respects I didn't. Like, you know, what she did to Seth really, you know, wasn't deserved. And but I feel like she tried to, I guess, make up for that a little bit with, you know, being friends with Emily, his sister, and trying to eventually clear his name when she realized that she was wrong and that he was not the murderer. um,
Right.
but Yeah, that was interesting to me. Um, what did you think about Laura? You remember she was also one of the people receiving the threatening messages, and then when the police came to check on her, she's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't receive any messages." She just kind of left
Oh yeah,
Cassidy
that
out
was
to dry.
yeah, that was very lame. And that was the one that Seth was seeing, right? Like secretly they were
Yes.
seeing each other. Yeah. I rolled my eyes during that whole scene. I
And
think
my,
she had the opportunity to do what was right, and I think she just let everybody down. And it was a very heartbreaking moment because I was just like, finally, like everything's going to be set in place. Like she's going to tell the truth about these messages, and she just doesn't. And I just thought that was really, it showed to me the kind of person she was, and she very much wants to look out for herself and her reputation rather than keeping other people safe.
yeah. And obviously not super believable, because I would hope that high school students would kind of um, rise to the occasion if something as serious as a murder had happened. And I do feel like, when things happen, um, at school, like even if it's something like a teacher is going through, or someone is very ill or whatever, I feel like most of the time the high school students I'm around, they rise to the occasion. They recognize the seriousness of things, and they do, um, rise to the challenge. And in this book, they do not. It's all about the image. And I'm like, okay, I know Melody was not the greatest person, but like, she was murdered. Like, does no one else care about getting justice? And it was kind of ironic that Cassidy, one of the people she tormented, was really one of the only people who, tried to find out who the murderer was. Which I guess part of that was
Yeah.
self-serving, because she was being threatened by the murderer as well. But, still, a murderer is on the loose. And something else, this is one thing with young adult books, it's like, where are the parents? Because, like,
I know.
someone has been murdered. And now, I would think parents would have their kids on lockdown. You know what I mean? Like, you are not going out of the house. You are not, and they're
I know.
still
And
like
I'm
going to
thinking,
dances. There was still a dance taking place, remember?
yeah, everyone's being murdered, but let's still go to this dance where everyone could be like murdered, like right in the gym or whatever. I was like, I think we only see Cass's mom like once in the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
That always
But
makes me
I get
laugh
that.
with young adult books. I'm like, gosh, these parents just so incompetent. Like, these kids are
Right.
just
And
running
like
amok.
if that happened like in your town or wherever you live, like the parents would be freaking out. Like we would not be able to
Yes.
leave
Yeah.
just anywhere. Like it's just crazy.
So, what did you think about the brother sister relationship between Asher and Cassidy?
I thought that it was, well, before we found out everything, I thought it was very kind of innocent. I didn't think they were too close, but I thought they were like normally close, how a brother and sister would be. Like brother looks out after sister and keeps her protected. But I don't think, I thought it was a little strange that instead of like talking with her about things, he would basically get all the information from Gideon, you know? So I
Yeah.
was like, maybe he could be a little overprotective and be Snoopy.
Yeah.
But usually, like any brothers, I had friends that had brothers, and they weren't usually like that. So I thought it was a little weird in that aspect, but I don't think it's that unusual that a brother would do that.
See, it's kind of weird, because I was suspicious of him early on in the book. I thought he was just kind of odd. I don't know. he was like the golden child of the family, right? Like his parents thought
Yeah.
he was like the high performer, he was the achiever, he was the good looking guy everybody liked. You know, he's the one who saved Cassidy from the fire, which, you know, we find out in the end that he actually, you know, had a big part in that, and basically leaving her friend there to die because he thought the friend was being mean to his sister. And then so I thought he was kind of odd. I thought he hovered a little bit too much. Like I felt like he was an adult by this point. He'd graduated high school. He's supposed to be like a business owner of some sort. I don't know if it was real estate. I don't know what he was doing. Like I never quite
caught that, really.
Caught what he was doing, but it was something you know, entrepreneurial. And he was still living at home though. So I thought it was kind of odd. I'm like, okay, if he's, you know, this high achiever and he's supposed to be so successful, why is he still living at home? And why is he hovering around his little sister's bedroom door? Like, I don't know. I just thought it was a little bit too much. Now, granted, I have a brother, but he's 10 years older than me. So, you know, I don't have that like perspective of like a super close, you know, sibling relationship where you're pretty close in age. Like, I don't really have that as a reference point.
Right.
So it was kind of hard for me to tell, but, you know, by the end, I'd forgotten about my suspicions with him because there were so many other red herrings that I just kind of moved on. But when the end reveal came that it was him, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. Were you satisfied with the ending?
I think so, because there were just so many moments of, well, maybe it is this person. Well, maybe it's this other person. And Peter just honestly threw me off. Like I was like so set. I was so set on Peter. Like it's got to be Peter. But I think I was. I'm a little bummed that, you know, I don't know. I feel like there could still be some more to explain with the ending. But I am, for the most part. Like I'm glad they were like, okay, well, my brother was arrested, and basically life kind of goes on. But I do think there could have been a little more added on to it at the end, like maybe a flash forward into like a year later or 2 years later, just to kind of see how everyone has progressed from this event.
Yeah, I think when I read the ending, I was pretty satisfied with it because I couldn't really think of any better way to end it as far as, you know, who the killer was and all of that. I couldn't really think of a better character for that to play out with. But the one thing that I guess was weird to me is why Asher was so intent on killing Gideon.
Yeah, that was kind of left.
That was kind of like just out of left field. Like, I don't even think Gideon was suspicious of Asher. If he was, I missed that. So it was kind of like, why are you all of a sudden going after Gideon? So it was kind of, it was very surprising that Asher was a killer. And I think because that kind of happened so fast, there really was no explanation of really how this all came to a head, that Asher kind of reveals himself. I guess you could say he was just, you know, completely just unstable, and, you know, he was a psychopath, so he was just going after people at that point. I guess you could say that, but it's like, you know, if he had covered up for so long what he did to Cassidy's friend, as her childhood friend, like, I don't know why he kind of went off the deep end here, why he didn't cover his tracks a little bit better. But, you know, I guess we had to find out who the killer was. So
yeah, I never quite understood the Gideon thing either. I was like, Gideon didn't even really, like, I don't even think Gideon was going back to talk to Asher or anything. Or, as you said, I don't think he suspected him. So I don't quite understand what that's from either.
Yeah, it was just basically like Gideon was supposed to pick up Cassidy, and then Asher, I guess, went and kidnapped him and used his phone and said, "Can't come, I'm sick." And then next thing we know, Asher's trying to kill Gideon at the scene of the initial crime near the little hobbit hole. But yeah, it was kind of odd.
Yeah, that's the only thing. I agree with you. It's just very random to throw in.
I did like this is one of my favorite parts, I guess, of any book, is when you find out where the title comes from.
Yes.
So I did highlight a couple spots. On one page, she says, "That night I dream that termites have infested the Hobbit house, covering the wood walls in decay. The little creeping things made a home here in our absence." And then later on, she said, "I know now that much of my identity stems from a lie. I'm not a killer. I didn't even accidentally kill Sarah Leeds. But I let myself believe the lie, the story Asher told me about myself, and it shaped every decision I made. I let those little creeping things embed themselves inside my brain, inside my very core, until they ate away at who I was." So I thought that was really cool. There were two, not just one, but two references to the title. So I thought that was really neat. And I thought it was kind of symbolic, I guess, that she talks about the Hobbit, the little Hobbit hole being infested by creeping things, because, that was like her place, her refuge with Gideon. And, all of that has been taken from her, that element of safety, having a safe place, because that's where Melody is murdered, and then that's where Asher tries to murder Gideon. So unfortunately, the Hobbit house is destroyed by the end of the book. It doesn't make it.
And you could also kind of think about that in the way that Asher was kind of her safety too, because he saved her from the fire.
Right.
And it wasn't even like the heartwarming, the brother's gonna save her. It was just, oh, okay, I guess I'll save you.
Yeah. And I don't even know. I kind of agree with you. I wish there had been like an epilogue or something about maybe like a year later what had happened, because, if you think about this, poor Cassidy, her whole life has been based on a lie. Like, she has been made to believe or think or wonder about her own, mentality. Am I a murderer? Did I kill my childhood friend? Or if I didn't kill her intentionally, did I just not do anything to save her? Like, who, what sort of person am I? And then to have so much trust in your brother, and you think like he's looking out for you, and then to find out that, he's the murderer, he's the psychopath. Like, I can't imagine what that does to a person. And you question everything after that, I suppose.
Oh, definitely. Who do you trust after that,
Yep. All right. Well, I guess we kind of covered everything, Dev. Is there anything you'd like to add about the book, or any last thoughts?
I loved Gideon, even though he and Cassidy kind of had their tiff in the middle of it. I just loved their friendship with each other. And I loved when, like, they're kind of in the middle of their tiff and he realizes, oh my gosh, she's been telling the truth about everything. And he finally holds her and she cries on him. And I'm just like, that's just precious. And he was just like, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you and been there for you. And I loved when he tells her, I'm not me without you. And I'm just like, even if that's a double meaning, like a romantic thing, it can still be like a friendship thing too. Because there's so many people that just make you feel like you're home. and you're safe. And I loved them together.
Yeah, me too. And I liked that, you know, even though there was that kind of simmering, you know, romantic, you know, sort of, you know, unrequited love going on there. Because we're never quite sure if it's just Cassidy who's having these feelings, you know, until the end of the book, really. That doesn't really get resolved. And, you know, even despite all of that and all of that awkwardness, you know, that happens, they're still very devoted friends. And even, you know, even when Gideon, like you said, he's questioning, like, is she telling the truth? You know, what sort of issues does she have, because she is having these blackouts and these things. He still sticks by her, which I think is a really hard thing to do, especially for a young person. So
Definitely.
all right, guys. Well, thanks for everyone who tuned in, and maybe I will read more of this author. I actually just got another book by this author in the library, so I may actually read that at some point. So yeah, enjoyed it overall, and thank you so much, Dev, for reading this with me. It was so much fun. It's always more fun when you have someone to read with. So,
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was awesome.
all right, guys, have a great day. Thanks for watching.